Yeah, am I working? Am I good? Okay, no worries.
The debate on same-sex marriage was abandoned at the Victorian ALP conference on Saturday because fewer than 150 delegates remained in the conference to vote on this controversial issue. The state conference is calling on the federal government to allow same-sex marriages to be recognised and registered by law. Reporter Lee Shun Chong takes a closer look.
No, I don't think civil unions is enough. I think we need full marriage equality, no questions. If you've got, at the end of the day, this is about you've got one group of people who are being treated differently to another group of people in society, and that's unacceptable whether it's race or gender. In this case, it's sexuality.
In Victoria, civil union, which is proposed in 2007, is a legally recognised union similar to marriage. It allows same-sex couples the rights similar to opposite-sex couples, such as superannuation, inheritance rights and property tax.
The basis of the tradition was marriage as civil contract, i.e. a way of ensuring that property was transmitted and of ensuring alliances between families. So, marriage was socially important in those terms.
How can we as a society really hope to achieve social justice? How can we hope to instill in our young people values of true equity, of tolerance, of understanding and embracing diversity when this fundamental social institution, so central to so many lives, is seen as a privilege and not a right?
If you go to these rallies, the overwhelming majority of people are young. I mean, the majority of people are teenagers there. 60% are probably teenagers, and the other, then 20% are probably under 30, and then there's a smaller group of older people there. So there's definitely a sense of this is inevitable, and it's something that this generation will achieve.
The Labour Party will consider the issue of marriage equality at its national conference later this year. Lee Shan Chong, Newsline.
Thanks, Lee Shun. Live music in Melbourne has faced many challenges in the past year, and government regulations have strained the industry's resources. But there may be light on the horizon. Alexandra Flood reports.
It's one of Melbourne's iconic live music venues, but the Tote, along with several other small businesses, was forced to close last year under the financial pressure of new liquor licensing laws requiring venues to pay for extra crowd management security. Secretary of Fairgo for Live Music, Jen Anderson, thinks the laws were problematic from the start.
I mean, the whole issue was that they didn't think it through, the impact of the law to the little guys, and it's the little sort of venues and the little pubs that keep that nourish this industry. And
Richard Wynne, member for Richmond, agrees the laws were dubious.
Through the roof. So there was a real mismatch, I think, between what was the intention of the regulatory change and the actual impact upon businesses.
It's been a long way to the top for live music in Melbourne. Yet, despite its recent challenges, the scene here in Collingwood is thriving. For many live musicians, gigging is their main source of income, and these crowds are here night after night to see them. For patrons of the Tote, it's a vital part of Melbourne.
I think the importance in, especially small scale things like this is that it's this, it's this little pocket of culture that exists.
For decades, the government has tried to regulate live music to the point of strangulation, but now they are starting to see the benefits of the industry. Tourism Victoria and Music Victoria have launched a new campaign marketing Melbourne's live music to the world. With this new campaign in its favour, it looks like live music could emerge as the winner of this struggle to stay alive. Alex Flood, Newsline.
Thanks, Alex. And now to the latest business news with Ian Branthwaite. And Ian, there's more bad news for Tiger Airways today.
That's right, Catherine. Amid recent criticism of poor customer service and delayed and cancelled flights, Tiger Airways Australia has posted a $6.8 million loss for the last financial year. This is in stark contrast to its parent company, Tiger Airways Singapore, which managed to make an operating profit of $40.8 million for the last financial year. So it seems that the subsidiary in Australia has a lot of work to do if it wants to remain a viable alternative in the Australian marketplace.
So Ian, while it's good for Tiger, I hear it's not so good for Shell.
Well, actually, it is pretty good for Shell. They've actually just got their final approval to build a 488-metre-long floating gas processing platform, which they're going to call Prelude. This will be situated about 200 kilometres off the West Australian coast. It's going to be the world's biggest gas processing platform, and it's going to be built to withstand up to Category 5 storms. And just to give you an idea of the scale of this project, it's going to be the size of 6 aircraft carriers placed end-to-end, and it's going to use 5 times as much steel as the Sydney Harbour Bridge.
And Ian, are bank stocks in trouble?
Well, yes, unfortunately. Despite Australian banks being in a fairly strong financial position generally, Australia's big 4 banks had their largest one-day fall in almost a year yesterday, wiping around $9 billion off the financial sector in total. Now, the reason for this is that because the US and European markets are still holding high levels of debt, a bit of a hangover from the global financial crisis that they haven't dealt with yet. So that means that with global markets continuing to fall overnight and the Greek government announcing the sale of public assets to try and deal with that sovereign debt, we're seeing the flow-on effects into our own markets, and we can expect that to continue until Europe and the United States have sorted out their debt crisis.
One of the biggest hurdles that migrants can face when settling into Australia is learning to speak English. Rita Azar spoke with staff and students at a learning centre in Melbourne to find out what's involved for migrants in their quest to integrate into our community.
Migrants know they have to learn the language if they want to find work and participate in the wider community. But accent, pronunciation and a different alphabet are among some difficulties that can be faced.
Yes, because according to my language is a little bit different, because the grammar is important, but my background in grammar is a little bit extended than English. That's difficulties for me.
But to build confidence in themselves, they need to confront these difficulties and overcome them.
What I feel more confident, and for me, confidence is very important for any individual person. And that means you can improve yourself, you can give it more safety to your family, you can guide your family to see the future.
Some migrants had difficult circumstances before they came to Australia, such as trauma and war. That's why they feel apprehensive when they start the English class.
They've been forced to come here by circumstances beyond their control, for the safety of themselves and their family, and that's very hard for them. Sometimes they come with torture and trauma, and that can stand in the way of their learning.
Women especially can find themselves on a steep learning curve, considering that their main priority is their family, and that can lead to a high level of absenteeism.
If a child is sick, that is a really big problem, because if they can't go to childcare or they can't attend school, the mum has to stay at home. And some families don't have any additional supports to rely on.
One bonus for the teachers is that their students are extremely keen to learn.
At the beginning of the term, they can look very sort of down and cloudy and like the world is sitting on their shoulders. And the end of the term, they can be very optimistic and bright and happy and feel much more confident about coming to a new country and learning a new language.
The program offers 510 free hours of English lessons over 250 locations Australia-wide. It's not such a bad deal in anyone's language. I'm Rita Azar for Newsline.
Thanks, Rita. Still to come on Newsline, African refugees turning into stars of Melbourne soccer fields, and the latest in sport and weather.
No, because it fell off before, and someone tried to fix it. These plungers relate to exotic bets that don't actually...
You can't hear all what those correspondents were saying over the top of all the stories.
Yes, certainly. These plungers relate to exotic bets that actually don't impact the outcome of a match. More likely to concern first goal kicker bets. Recent examples include Brent Guerra, who was backed from $101 to $26, and the Brisbane Lions' Daniel Merritt. Okay, thanks.
Bob Davis had his funeral in Geelong today. Welcome back to Newsline. Refugees from the Horn of Africa have kicked off a new season in Melbourne's Metropolitan League, and as I found, those in Carlton Youth Football Club are finding soccer to be a great link to the wider community.
It's been a bumpy road for the Africans who came to Carlton Estate around 20 years ago. These young men were either children when they arrived or born in Carlton, and like more and more Australians, they're embracing the world game.
Yeah, it's good. We're playing with our mates and all, you know what I mean? We're bonding and all. So we're having a good time and hopefully we get some wins along the way.
The team made the trek to High Point to play Maribyrnong for the first game, but despite a last-minute rush of registering players, the team was ready to go. Both games showed fantastic passages of play from the Carlton side, excellent work in defence by Jose Pinto and a couple of clever goals, but unfortunately they were unable to snag a win.
In every great sport, there are famous rivalries. Australia versus England in the cricket, Carlton and Collingwood in the AFL. But for the Horn of Africa boys, there's one team they want to beat more than any other, and that's Flemington.
Yeah, I think everybody's really focused on that game. I mean, we're really using this game as just a practice game, just for that particular game.
We need to get informed before we play Flem, because, we got, let's say, grudge against each other.
Along with Carlton YMCA and Drummond Street Youth Services, who run the administration side of the team, the Church of All Nations, led by Reverend John Evans, have provided assistance to those doing it tough, offering food vouchers, non-interest loans and more computer and internet facilities. The bonds and friendships that are born from such tight team involvement are what keep the community strong and focused on living a successful life.
Because they're engaging in the team, we also know what's going on in their broader lives so that we can work on employment, education.
The team has been getting involved with the wider Carlton community, especially late last year when they beat Melbourne University Residential College Queens in a friendly match. After the match, both teams bonded in the Queen's Dining Hall.
There's no shortage of sport for the Horn of Africa players, with many also being keen on AFL. It would be easy to see a few years down the track, the estate being a breeding ground for both codes, as already a couple of players from last year's team have made it to Victoria's Premier League level.
Ted O'Connor, Newsline.
Thanks, Ted. And now we're joined by Sean O'Callaghan with today's sport. And Sean, recent betting plunges have raised eyebrows within betting agencies and the AFL.
That's right, Catherine. These plunges relate to exotic bets which aren't likely to impact the outcome of a match. They more concern the first goal kicker in a match. Now, recent examples include Hawthorn's Brent Guerra. He was backed from $101 right into $26. And the Brisbane Lions player Daniel Merritt, who was backed from $101 into $15. Now, these two players are both defenders. They were named to start in defence, but actually started the match in attack. Now, AFL media manager Patrick Keane, has confirmed the league's integrity officer will be looking at ways to avoid these situations. Now, Patrick Keane did stress that no player or club in particular will be examined at this time. It's not known whether the leaks were done deliberately or not. What's possibly happened is a player or coach has just said something to a mate or a friend, and then this has been linked via Facebook or Twitter or other social networks like fan forums.
And sticking to AFL, Bob Davis's funeral was held in Geelong today.
Yes, that's right. This was tipped to be one of the biggest funerals in the history of the town of Geelong. Thousands of fans were expected to gather to farewell two-time premiership player and also premiership coach at Geelong. He's a much-loved media figure also for the last 46 years. Now, the funeral was held at St Mary's Basilica at 1 p.m, and it was then the procession passed by Cardinia Park, the Cats headquarters, so Bob Davis could say goodbye one last time.
And now to tennis, and there were mixed results overnight for the Aussies at the French Open.
Yes, that's right. Australia's Anastasia Rodionova, she's ranked 74 in the world, and she battled from a set down to overcome Nadia Petrova, the women's 26th seed. Now, this was a big effort for Rodionova. Petrova was previously ranked third in the world. The score was 6-7, 6-3, 6-4. Unfortunately for Australia, Bernard Tomic bowed out. He lost in straight sets to Argentine Carlos Berlocq, the world number 69. It was a 7-5, 6-4, 6-2 loss in a little over 2 hours. And unfortunately, it's the first time in the Open era that an Australian male won't play in the second round at the Roland Garros tournament. Men's number 1 seed Novak Djokovic won his 38th successive match, and that will see him within 4 of 1984 John McEnroe, who won 42 matches in a row.
Thanks, Sean. And now to today's weather. It's been a cloudy day with scattered showers and a high of 14 in Melbourne and Geelong. We'll see a similar weather pattern tomorrow in both cities, cloudy and isolated showers with a maximum of 14 in Melbourne and 13 in Geelong. Thursday, cloudy and 14 degrees in Melbourne, 15 with isolated showers in Geelong, and that's all we have time for today on Newsline. Thanks for watching.
And I hope you can join us again tomorrow at the same time. Have a great evening.